Hello, and welcome to Bread and Thread, a podcast about food and domestic history. I'm Liz.
I'm Hazel. We're two friends who studied archaeology together and love history. So, what's going on? What have you been creating at this time?
Mostly just granny squares at the moment. Been, Quarantine has just been nesting.
I get that feeling, yeah. It's like you just want to create coziness.
If I'm going to be stuck in this house, I'm going to fill it with as many blankets as humanly possible.
I don't think there is like a critical amount of blankets. I think you just pile them on until entire surroundings are soft and cuddly.
Well, I mean, we have an empty ottoman that is being used for blanket storage, so, can fill that up.
You have a blanket chest.
We do.
That's great.
I did also. I learned that you can use plain flour instead of white bread flour. So we also made pizza today. Sourdough
Awesome.
pizza.
What kind of pizza?
Uh, Chicken and ham and sweet corn
Ooh.
with with a sourdough base from Lovely Dorian.
Oh, that sounds fancy.
So that was my day.
That is a good day. Yeah. I haven't really baked in a while. I should get back to that. I've been a bit distracted by when you get into like mood for a certain thing or like a certain craft
Oh,
and you're
definitely.
like, this is what I'm doing for the next weeks. And then after 2 weeks, you're just like, oh, I guess we're doing a different thing now for the next weeks.
Gotta love hyper focusing.
Yeah. Um, so I'm
Um,
kind of on a bit of an embroidery kick at the moment.
you've also had some new arrivals, haven't you?
Yeah, we got chickens and I love them so much. We have three chickens. They are mottled leghorns, which apparently is a fairly new breed, like crossed with the leghorn. I don't know why that's better. I don't know that much about chickens.
Maybe we should do an episode on kinds of chicken.
Yeah, maybe we should. Actually, that would be interesting because we studied chicken domestication, didn't we?
I think chickens did come up, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I remember because in that
things
class,
came up because we could basically pick what we wanted to look at. I did goats and oats because they rhyme.
I remember because in that class the tutor would do the thing where she gave out a present for like the best act or something on certain homeworks, and I won a book about turkeys or my fascinating facts about chickens that I found.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
her like specialism was turkey domestication.
yeah, yeah.
I
That was
have a
wild. Oh.
bookmark that I won from her somewhere.
The good old days of studying the history of cannabis.
Yeah,
Anyway,
now
we
I'm
have
just
chickens.
writing a dissertation on autism in museums, which is interesting, but I keep risking just teetering over into rant.
I feel like if it's a good, well-researched rant, you're allowed that.
Rant with sources is what I need.
Yeah, I might start doing that. Every time I get into an argument, I'm just gonna like cite my sources, maybe make notes on my phone, and then I can pull them up when I need them and just be like, here's the Harvard reference to support my argument.
I've started keeping a commonplace book, but so far it's mostly just quotes that have amused or spoken to me. There's not really any facts in there yet.
Is that just like a diary for random stuff or
Yeah, it's like a book where you just write down sort of if you come across like a quote or a fact, you just sort of save it. It's like a scrapbook of words.
that's really cool.
At least that's the impression I get from Nick. But Nick has an English degree, so hopefully they know. So now I have one, and it has Moomins on the cover.
Oh, nice. Also, it does sound like something that an Elizabethan poet would keep. This is my commonplace book.
To be fair, a lot of sort of Georgian Victorian writers did have them.
I think that does make sense, I guess, because I guess it's the olden days equivalent of like, oh, that's a good idea. Let me just write that on my phone for later.
Yeah, I know specifically Thomas Hardy had one,
Ooh,
and like he wrote some good stuff.
did. He did. I'm a Black Hardy.
So what are you teaching us about today? Because I believe it is your
Okay.
turn.
Today, kids, we are going to learn about embroidery samplers. Now, that might seem a bit of a dull topic at first, but let me tell you, I have found out some somewhat wild things about embroidery samplers.
I'm trying to think of anything I know about embroidery samplers. I think I pretty much just know they often have the alphabet and you use it to show your future husband how good you are at embroidery.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, probably the ones. I mean, if you've never seen a sampler, you probably have. Like the stereotypical things on the wall in like period dramas with made by nice Victorian girls to display on the wall at school. Um,
When this episode goes up, I'll tweet some.
yeah, I will. There will definitely be some sampler pictures because there are some great ones that I found out about. Um, so yeah, basically, embroidery sampler is a piece of embroidery normally done by young women to like show their skills at embroidery. And often they would be done at school because, women's education historically wasn't that great, but you would get taught embroidery. I guess that was one of the ways of expressing yourself. So I'm going to start with
It's an art.
actually a quote from Northanger Abbey, which I read.
Of Northanger Abbey. Sorry, I just got very excited because I really like that book.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's good, right? I've been listening to books on like audiobooks before I to sleep, and I just finished Northanger Abbey, and yeah, it's really good. Um, but yeah, Northanger Abbey published in 1817. And one of the characters says to the heroine of the novel, who's a 17-year-old girl, consider how many years I have had the start of you. I had entered on my studies at Oxford while you were a good little girl working your sampler at home. So, yeah, little literary mention there.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, kind of a reference for the convention of girls and young women making their samplers either at school or at home if you were rich and got taught at home. So samplers are often, a lot of them are in like cross stitch because that's a fairly easy stitch to learn, especially if you're like a kid.
I think I got to
Sorry? Yeah, I think we did as well. We had like a Victorian themed day and we did like cross stitch.
we just did it in an art class. We got given like this like plastic Ida with really big holes and we had to make bookmarks.
Ah, quite fun actually.
It's fun.
Yeah. But there are also
I still
a lot of other stitches you them. Like the different ones, chain stitch, back stitch, French knots, petit pois, you call it, which is like really, really tiny pointed stitches. They often have representations of the house and the family of the person who made it. They often have alphabets, like you said, and they have like sayings on them, often quite, sentimental sayings or religious ones. So the earliest dated sampler, apparently, well, English style sampler. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about here. Embroidery is such a massive topic, and there's like so many different styles all over the world. It's one of the oldest like art forms in the world. So like there's kind of a lot to cover. And I can't really not going to talk about all of it. I do different episodes on different kinds of embroidery, but yeah, here I'm going to be talking about like English style. Um, so the earliest dated one that we have is from 1598.
Wow.
And yeah, I know. Good.
That's ancient for textiles.
Yeah, and it's pretty well preserved. I'll link on the Twitter to there's a video of some of them being presented by an antiques dealer. And this one is really beautiful actually. It's got those kind of heraldic beasts like the Elizabethan style ones. And there's a lot of black work on it, which is an embroidery style, which is kind of done in outline, but very intricate outlines.
Is it like a silhouette or is it just like black lines?
It kind of like knot work and stuff, and degree type patterns.
Okay.
Yeah, but done in kind of very fine lines. It doesn't have to be black. It's just that like often it was. So yeah, that's kind of how far it goes back. Although of course embroidery as an art form is very, very ancient. And the earliest kind of samplers were just exactly that, really, samples of embroidery. So from like the 16th and 17th centuries, we have these really long, thin band samplers. They're like short bands of embroidery going across for like a really long roll of cloth. And those weren't actually made to be displayed. They were made as references, like pattern books, essentially. So if you wanted to like some embroidery on the hem of your dress or something, you'd unroll your band sampler and just be like, oh yeah, I think I want that one. And then you could use it as a reference to do the embroidery. Yeah, so if you wanted to embroider the hem of your dress, for example, you would unroll your band sampler and you'd pick a pattern and then you'd use the sampler as a reference to do the embroidery.
So it's like an embroidery menu.
Yeah, essentially. A menu of stitches. Be nice. So they could also have been used to teach embroidery as well to like, children or young women. And samplers became really, really popular in the 18th and 19th centuries. So going back to women's education, like unless you were super, super rich in the medieval era, you didn't get your male children educated, basically. And a lot of women were illiterate, as were a lot of men. So the samplers, for the early samplers, a lot of them don't have the alphabet on. It's just kind of pictures. And the kind of examples of bands of embroidery. But as you go on, you start to get the sayings appearing and the alphabet and stuff, which is kind of a neat little record of women's literacy being reflected in embroidery.
Definitely.
Yeah. And there were some
the early ones though, is just like I might not be able to read, but by golly I can sew a tree.
yeah. It's like I'm gonna express myself somehow. Is a dog.
It's better than interpretive dance.
Anything's better than interpretive dance.
No offense to anyone listening who might do interpretive dance, but I don't get it. I don't understand what you do.
Yeah, so I found some cool sayings on them. There's some, I mean, a lot of them are religious. A lot of them are morals as well, like moralizing stuff. Like there was one that had cross stitched on it. The oh, sorry, you can edit this bit out because I'm just trying to find it again. I did not write this down, unfortunately.
I guess having the sort of sayings and Bible verses would be quite a good sort of a good embroiderer and also a nice meek woman who will make a good wife.
Yeah. And because they were often done in school as well by young girls, it was a way of drumming in the whole like how to be a good little girl.
I like the idea of doing a modern sampler, just all these beautiful flowers and things, and then just mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
I mean, I think there are a lot of things like that now, and I'll get on to sort of modern sampler embroidery in a minute, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah, here we go. Fairest virtues never shine so bright as when shy modesty does shade the light. Veils add to beauty, and the more we seem to court contempt, the more we gain esteem. It was
There's
a
a
neat.
very definite moral there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's definitely like don't expose your ankles, ladies.
Don't show off in any way ever.
mm. But they weren't all like that, fortunately. Because I found some pretty political samplers, actually.
Ooh.
There's one from 1836 by an Esther Stewart. That was an anti-slavery sampler. So 1836 is 2 years before slavery was officially abolished in England. And yeah, there's this abolitionist sampler showing an African slave like in chains and foliage and like text on it, which is pretty cool.
What's the text on that one?
I can't make it out, unfortunately. It's not easy to see from the picture, but I'll get the picture and put that up on Twitter because this is I had no idea about this at all. But yeah, samplers and embroidery could definitely be a medium for expressing like, political sentiments as well. So that could have been someone. We don't know much about the family of the person of Esther Stewart who made that, but been a Quaker family or like a abolitionist family.
Do you want to truly understand the tripe monster from space? Do you want to know what happens when you compress an egg? We don't have the answers to these questions, but we do have a podcast about bad and weird films. Pod 9 from Outer Space, starring me, Nick, and Liz, who is not me.
Hello, I'm Mod Paper from Probably Bad RPG Ideas, and we have a podcast. If you'd like to hear RPG advice on how to use assorted incredibly bad ideas as actual ideas in an actual game, then listen to the Probably Bad podcast. Available on pretty much every podcatcher. And remember to have a probably bad day.
I was just wondering if it was the am I not a man and a brother thing, because I know that was
I don't think it was. I don't think it was. Although the figure of the man does look a lot like the Wedgwoods figure. So it could be that it was based on that.
There's actually a statue of that figure at Dunham Massey near Warrington with that text around it, which I always found quite interesting. It's not really relevant to embroidery, but I find that image being around a lot quite interesting as a thing, because It was Wedgwood that gave it to. It was like a thing for abolitionist rich people to have as a motif or as a little cameo, wasn't it?
Yeah. They were like kind of ceramic pieces, weren't they?
Because that's what Wedgwood did. Still do.
Oh yeah, I forgot they're still going.
I've been to the. They have like a factory tour, which is quite cool.
Oh, living history.
Mm.
So while we're on the subject of political samplers, let me talk to you about Mary, Queen of Scots, because
Of the
this is
marmalade.
awesome. Maybe not quite technically a sampler, but definitely using a lot of the same technique. So Mary, Queen of Scots, and she was imprisoned by Elizabeth I as a threat to her throne. I think she was imprisoned for about 7 years, at least. And she did not have a lot to do in prison. Well, I say in prison, like, it was a nice house. But apparently, one of the places she was kept, was not great, and she got ill from it. But later on, she was transferred to better conditions, and she was able to get embroidery supplies. And apparently, she was always quite good at embroidery and would embroider during council meetings in Scotland.
That's great. It's
but
like, yes, I'm
before
a
she
woman
was-
doing womanly things. I'm also in charge.
I know, I really like that image of just like, yes, off with his head. I'll sign the warrant in a moment. I've just got to finish this flower. But it's like she didn't really have a lot of time for embroidery while she was busy being queen, as you might expect. Once she was stuck in the house, she had a lot more time, as a lot of us might relate to at the moment. And she did a lot of embroidery. There's like over 100 pieces done by Mary, Queen of Scots, and her household that survive. The Victoria and Albert Museum has a lot of them. You can see some of them online in their gallery. I'll post a link to that as well.
Tweeting all these individual
very
links,
cool.
we should probably put them in the show notes.
Yes, yeah, we should also do that. I've made a note to the link. Remember to do that. And so a lot of the themes that Mary, Queen of Scots did were quite symbolic. So yeah, like just to let you know how much embroidery she did. There's a quote from an envoy of Elizabeth I, who said, "I asked her Grace, since the weather did cut off all exercises abroad, how she passed the time within. She said that all the day she wrought with her needle, that the diversity of colours made the work seem less tedious, and continued so long at it, till the very pain did make her to give over."
I've definitely been there.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I know, right? When you're just like really into making a thing, and then you suddenly realize, oh, my wrist hurts.
Eyes hurt.
Yeah. A lot of her embroideries had very, very symbolic themes, and they were often quite like almost treasonous. So there's a picture from the Marion hanging, which is hanging made out of separate panels that Mary and her household made. And interestingly, her jailer, the man in charge of her house arrest, his wife was Bess of Hardwick, the famous Bess of Hardwick, who would often sit. Yeah, who would often sit with Mary and embroider.
That's wonderful.
Okay. It's great. And so there are themes such as there's a representation of a phoenix, which symbolizes regeneration, like rising from the ashes. There's one she made of like a crowned ginger cat, like toying with a grey mouse, which is a pretty obvious reference to Ginger Elizabeth I. Yeah, kind of like playing around with Mary. And one of the most obvious ones, well, I guess maybe not that obvious if you're not like Elizabethan who is pretty into symbolism, but the center of the Marian hanging is a picture of a grapevine, like a hand holding a pair of scissors ready to prune a grapevine, which is supposed to symbolize like pruning off a dead fruitless branch. With like Queen Elizabeth having no children, and yeah, Mary being like, well, they get rid of this one so that the rest of the tree can flourish. In fact, some of the evidence used in the case against the Babington plot, which is the supposed plot to kill Elizabeth I that led to Mary Queen of Scots being executed. Some of the evidence brought against one of the conspirators in that plot was embroidered cushion covers that Mary had sent him as a present, which had some of these like themes of Scottish symbols and like symbols of Mary being rightful heir to the English throne. So, yeah.
Yeah,
You're into trouble.
I mean, that's not even treason adjacent. That's just treason at that point.
That is embroidered treason. Yeah. So there are also the subject of alphabets. There are also examples of samplers in other languages, English style samplers in other languages than English, that were made in mission schools in various places because colonialism. Apparently, sometimes the people who kind of wanted to get ahead a bit during the occupation would like send their daughters to a mission school, like convert to Christianity, and their daughters to a mission school. Their daughters would learn how to be nice young ladies, and as soon as they left, would like convert back, which is quite cool.
Or pretend to take their god to steal their knowledge.
Yeah,
I love it.
Thanks for the education. We'll be going now. So there are like samplers done in like Hindi, like Bengali languages, and like various others. Yeah, which is cool.
I love that as a form of rebellion.
Yeah. All right, I'll stitch your sampler. I'll do it in my language.
It's basically the song Love Song.
Yeah, and I guess the last note I have on it is modern sampler embroidery. A lot of people collect these embroidery samplers now. They're like
really loud, and the microphone I think is picking it up a little bit. Sorry.
Okay.
You were saying?
So a lot of people collect these historical samplers nowadays. They're quite a popular collector's item, especially the antique ones. And they can often go for large sums of money at the moment. As I said, the V&A have got a lot, and like various other museums. I think in Edinburgh as well, they have a few of the Queen of Scots' embroideries, and also displays of other samplers. You can occasionally still find them in like beat sales and things because people have had there were a lot of these made, obviously, and a lot of people would just like have them in their homes and kind of not really was a distant ancestor who did it, and they didn't really know. So you can sometimes find them at car boot sales or charity shops and things, and they can be quite valuable. Sampler embroidery, like the style of samplers, is now quite popular in modern embroidery as well. So they're really popular as cross-stitch patterns,
sort of
particularly.
Pieces of fabric with the pattern for a sampler drawn on them in like haberdashery shops.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think you can get like the stamped ones. And like in counter cross stitch as well, you can get, people will do exact copies of samplers. So there's a lot of embroidery patterns or cross stitch patterns that are brought out that are like copies of really old samplers, which are quite popular. I guess people like that look and that kind of that kind of personal design. And there are also more modern designs that use sampler motifs from old samplers, but done in new ways and just done in that style. So like I'm doing one at the moment. I thought just before quarantine came down, I was like, I actually get a project that's going to carry me through this. So I got this absolutely gigantic pattern that is it's called Death by Cross Stitch. It's by a UK designer called Long Dog Samplers, and it's got all these like heraldic beasts in it, and it's supposed to be based on old Dutch samplers. So there's like an alphabet, but there's some letters missing because apparently they didn't use those in Dutch. They used not to. And there's a lot of motifs that are inspired by that time, and different. There's little animals hidden away as well. Sorry, I'm just pause because the bloody landline's ringing.
What is a landline?
So that's pretty much it. That's bringing us up from 1598 to the present day.
That's cool. I didn't consider there being sort of political ones, but I guess it's obvious once you say it. They're like, of course, they weren't all just sat there, yes, I'll do what I'm told.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to be spending that long making something, I think it's very natural to put a bit of your opinions into it. And that actually does, I don't know if I can say this on this podcast, given that it's supposed to be family friendly. But I'll post the link probably. There's a really great Tumblr account makes samplers out of memes. Yeah, so they're fantastic, and you can get patterns from them if you so wish. I'm also doing one of those at the moment that there's a raven, and it says next to the raven, "If I want your opinion, I'll read it in your
That's
entrails."
wonderful.
Yeah, in case you want to indulge your modern sampler bug, you know where to go.
So I think we may have to skip the local ladder this week because there was a lot to say about samplers.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, it was
go
interesting. It just means something that we can do at a future one.
Sorry, I got really interested.
Hey,
in this
I was fascinated. And we hope you were too. If you have a suggestion for an episode or a local louder, you can email breadandthreadpodcast@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Twitter
And if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/breadandthread. get access to things like instructional videos and Patreon exclusive recipes. And we will see you next time.
Then.